Okay, in this video we are going to look at the value in use calc. So last year we've given you the value in use figure, but this year you must be able to calculate the value in use. So therefore it's something new, and therefore you can expect this in a test. Also something to note is that the value in use is an entity-specific amount. It's the value that the company gets by using the asset in its current condition, whereas the fair value less cost to sell will be a market-based measurement. So how will we calculate value in use? We will look at the future cash flows, and we will discount the future cash flows with before tax interest rate to calculate the net present value. We will compare that to our fair value less cost to sell, and then we will use the higher of the two as our recoverable amount. If we look at the cash flows that we are going to use, it must be the relevant cash flows from using the asset, as well as the cash outflows necessary to create the cash inflows. And then your eventual disposal, so the amount that you expect to receive at the end, less the cost to sell. The assumptions that we use, remember this is now based on projections and estimates and budgets, so it's not actual amounts, it's a forecast. So therefore management is making assumptions, and these assumptions should be reasonable, justifiable. It should be management best estimate, so not overly optimistic or pessimistic. It must be considerate of the past cash flows and the past accuracy. And it should be based mainly on external evidence, as external evidence is considered to be more objective. It should be ideally for 5 years or shorter, and based on past experience to forecast our cash flows accurately over a longer period, and it should be based on the most recent and approved budgets and forecasts. If we have cash flows longer than 5 years, then it needs to be the projection needs to be extrapolated, and therefore the growth rate that we are going to use is a steady or declining growth rate, unless we can really justify an increasing growth rate, and it should not exceed the long-term average growth rate unless you can really justify it, because for projections longer than 5 years, it is not that much reliable anymore. Then if we look at inflation, the discount rate we use must either include general inflation or exclude. And this will depend on whether we've used nominal cash flows or real cash flows. So nominal cash flows, very important. Nominal will include my inflation. So maybe remember IN for inflation nominal, and it will include my inflation. So the current values, cash flow amounts have been adjusted upwards for the effects of inflation. It's the actual cash flows that we expect to receive, whereas our real cash flows will be the nominal cash flows brought back to real terms by reversing out the general inflation, and it will thus be the real cash flows, and it should only include your specific non-inflation related price increases or decreases. So very important to remember, if we use nominal cash flows, the discount rate must also reflect the effects of inflation, as nominal will include inflation. Real cash flows, discount rate should not reflect the effects of inflation, as the real cash flows will also exclude inflation.